Welcome to Coaching in Session, where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
Unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Have you ever wondered what makes a person truly strong? Is it the muscles that they have on their body, or is it the courage that they have within their soul? Maybe the wisdoms they have within their mind. They can have different levels of strength for different levels of people, because what makes a man strong might not make a woman strong, or vice versa. What makes a woman strong might not make a man strong. And this is to say, well, what is strength then? Well, there is a common denominator, of course. When we look at strong and strength, it's not so much of iron or steel or concrete, but something more of that is flexible to a degree, but is still sturdy. I think of palm trees. Palm trees can withstand hurricanes, 100 plus mile an hour wind, but they stand tall. Yet a great oak tree, the moment it gets hit by 100, 120 mile an hour wind, they're falling over. What's the difference? What makes this skinny palm tree any more strong than this great oak? Well, there's a couple of factors. Of course, how the palm trees are. Of course, their structure, they're more flexible, they're bendy, while the great oaks, they're strong, sturdy, solid, stiff. And as much as you would like to say, like, all right, cool, I want my home built with this oak, my log cabin's built with oak, when they're to the ground and they're alive, it's a different ballgame. What if I said that your mind can be in a different ballgame if you are in a different mindset? What we like to call it here at Reven Concepts is mental fortitude, where we are not only talking about what the mind is, what the mind isn't, but what the mind can be. I have this article here. It's a TOS article, TOS Part 80, and this is talking about mental fortitude, how high performers strengthen their inner walls. Now, of course, TOS series, again, are for people who have strong mindsets. It's not for just your regular Joe who is literally trying to, I need a strong mental fortitude. All right, cool. Let me do it. It's going to be hard to get it. All right. Mental fortitude is something that's built through resilience, meaning it is this, like, you withstand the test of time, right? Again and again and again, you hammer and you hammer and you hammer. Even if you don't see the result quite yet, you keep on working on the product, and the product could be you, right? Now, mental fortitude is this aspect of we give ourselves this factor of moving forward, right? The engine, the building blocks, the intelligence, the luck, whatever you want to consider mental fortitude, right? It is everything put into one. I think of it as how some types of concrete are stronger than others, whether it be the type of stones that they use, what they put inside of the concrete, to the waters that they use. All of these factors can make concrete a certain strength. There's some technologies where you are putting, I don't know if it's like iron, or iron dust into concrete, where it makes it as strong as steel, or the type of rebars that are used. And you have to ask yourself, whoa, if concrete can be this strong, why are we not using them all around? And of course, we know because of cost. But then again, practicability. Why do we need to have this concrete that is strong enough everywhere where it is going to be overkill? And sometimes in our life, we just give ourselves strong enough for the life that we're living. So we might want to be just a regular Joe. And we just say, okay, well, we need this type of mental fortitude. Maybe we want to be this CEO, right? This head honcho. We need this level of fortitude. Maybe we want to be the greatest that has ever done it. Okay, whether it be an Olympic gold medalist, like someone who plays sports or athletics, or maybe someone who's just like a business person like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, right? These people, right? Their mental fortitude is above and beyond what the average persons are, because most people struggle in life because their circumstances are getting the better of them. But then again, there's going to be people who live within their circumstances and people who live out of their circumstances. So when we're looking at these high achievers, these high performers, they do not care about their circumstances. Yes, they might be aware of them, but they don't care about their circumstances. Well, I don't have no money. Oh, well, I know how to get money. All right. Think of how sometimes you talk to a millionaire or millionaires will go on a podcast or something, and they will say, if you had $0, could you become a millionaire again? Most all of them say yes. Yes, I can become a millionaire again. I know how it's done. I know how to do it. It's a walk in the park for me. Versus people who have never done it before, they are like, whoa, $1 million? That's a dream of mine. And the dream is so far off. So we have people who can start from nothing and create $1 million, and people who have maybe a strong foundation that can get $1 million, but they just don't know how. And then there's just people who don't even want to. They don't want to go through that path. Well, we have to ask ourselves, what is mental fortitude, right? And this idea of resilience comes into mind. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty, right? I don't want people to think that if you're resilient, right, your life is just automatically perfect and automatically magical. It's the ability for you to look at challenges and setbacks and say, no matter what, I'm going to rise. I'm going to be able to perform past all of these obstacles, all of these challenges. It's not going to matter because I'm coming out on top. Mental fortitude is saying that I'm going to do it, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Not living in the common mindset of, I hope it happens. Maybe it would happen if I'm lucky. So you're basing things on hope, luck, and the possibility that it could happen. Sure, right? There are possibilities that you can have this wonderful life, that you can have a good life. But then there's going to be moments when you could be pronounced. Why are we not pronounced all the time? Of course, this is why this is a TOS, right? This is for people who are pronounced most of the time. Because now when we get into this idea of strengthening our walls or strengthening our mental fortitude, there is a process to building this, right? And it requires a proactive approach. It's not something where we're just passive, right? We're just coasting. We just do what we're told. It's just like automatic. We have to anticipate things before they even happen. For example, let's say the pandemic, right? If you were a high achiever, a high performer, and you knew that there was a possibility of something like a catastrophic event like COVID-19 happening, you would look at this as a challenge and you would rise before it, right? And if it happens during it, you will figure out a way to rise above it because there were businesses during COVID-19 that did crazy good. And then there was some that didn't, okay? Think of businesses like Zoom that was put into every single classroom. Zoom was just one of these things that people are like, it's the alternative to Skype. All right, well, I have Skype. Why do I need Zoom? Oh, Zoom did it so much better. Okay, cool. But then Zoom had limitations. And then they basically were given an opportunity for a home run and they said, I'm going to rise. It doesn't matter what the world says. I'm going to win. And so Zoom came out on top. Of course, now we have so many other platforms today, but there was an obstacle. They strategized, they found a solution, and they got paid for that. In a sense, we can do the same thing, right? The principles are all in alignment with what people desire at any given point. If there's a need, there's a desire, and there has to be a service to fulfill that need. What happens is people, they don't think about what needs they're providing to people. Here in coaching in session, there is no necessarily like, hey, you need to listen to this episode, right? Because everyone is going to be in a different place, right? Coaching in session is a buffet. Now, coaching session is just a subsidiary of what Reven Concepts is and what Reven Concepts does. Reven Concepts is one of those mandatory things that everyone needs to understand themselves, their mindsets, and what they're capable of. because it's easy for us to be passive. Think about it. It's easy to be passive. Just sit on the sofa and you're winning, right? If there was a game to be passive, Americans will be winning, but there's not. So we need to figure out how we can be mentally fortified to not be passive, to not just allow the world to happen to us with circumstance. We need to figure out how to be stronger, even in moments of challenges. Now, there's going to be about 7 steps that I want you to understand when we're trying to develop a mental fortitude. And I'm going to read through the steps and then I'm going to break them down a little bit. Number 1, I want you to pause and assess. Number 2, I want you to identify core values. 3, I want you to set up micro challenges. 4, I want you to reflect daily. 5, I want you to reinforce through action. 6, I want you to visualize obstacles. And 7, I want you to maintain energy boundaries. Now, when we start to look at these areas, I want you to understand that they're going to be personalized to you, but the whole premise of what they are stands the test of mental fortitude. Okay? Because all together, you get that mix of strong concrete, you get steel, you get what is forged in your mind to be strong. Now, one of these by itself is not strong. All together, now we have a mental fortitude that is powerful. And I want you to understand it's not just, all right, I'm going to pause and assess. And I did my pausing and assessing. And I see what is the problem. And I know the problem. And I'm going to maybe respond to the problem. And great, right? We don't necessarily have a next step, right? We are just literally doing that. And most people, they get stuck in this number 1 phase, because after it, you might think of it as, I'm going to take action. And action is not it, not yet, right? So we need to understand what builds mental fortitude. Now, when we pause and assess, this is going to be reacting to any challenge, right? But we're going to observe first. So we are not going to simply react because it was given to us. We're going to react because we have to. Think of COVID-19 or the pandemic again. Businesses reacted to the news. Gyms reacted to the news. They developed protocols, hand washing stations, hand sanitizer, mask wearing, right? They reacted, right? They were not proactive because they had to react to what was happening was already there. Now, if they were being proactive about it, they would say, okay, before it even came out, everyone, let's make sure we're washing our hands and all the gym equipment. And even though the gym equipment was being washed and cleaned, all of these things, again, for a situation like the pandemic, which what it was, would be hard to counteract. And what happened was we literally isolated ourselves, lowering our immune system to a degree because we weren't introduced to any outside viruses or bacteria. And all of a sudden, now we're going back into the world after 6 months, and our bodies are literally, our immune system has not been fighting anything. No germs, no nothing. It's just our home, right? It's all the germs, the same germs that we were in, right? And then all of a sudden, everyone gets sick. It's like, why is everyone sick? It's a system, it's systematic. So we can pause and assess and think that what we're going to do is the best course of action, but sometimes it could be the problem. So now let's look at the core values for what we want or what we desire. We can use, again, the pandemic as a situation, but again, core values are going to be more so of your desires and your principles that you want for yourself, right? So the decisions that you make, the things that you want in your life, these things are going to be personal because, again, you might value hard, like discipline or something like that, right? Or being a hard worker or being punctual, right? These things are going to help be the glue for everything. Because when we get into step 3, this is where we start to give ourselves some challenges, where we're setting up these micro challenges, where we're putting ourselves into, or we're pushing ourselves into small, controllable situations where we can tolerate any hardship, the discomfort. Think of it as fasting, right? So my wife, she wanted to fast one day. She was like, I'm going to fast with you because I do a 2-day fast on the weekend. And she's like, I'm going to fast with you. And she made it 16 hours. For me, I was just like, I don't know why you're trying to fast with me, right? Because number one, you didn't give yourself the mindset for it, right? You didn't prepare for it. And you don't necessarily even have a reason to do it, right? Like there's no reason for you to value fasting. So why even bother? Of course, you can say, I just want to do it with you so it doesn't feel like I'm eating and you're not and I'm making it hard for you. No, you can eat a cheeseburger right in front of me. I'm good. For some people, it would be more challenging. So that's why sometimes in relationships, they work out together or they diet together, right? So they make it a team effort. Now, when we are progressing, right, one of the things we need to do is reflect daily. We can't just let bygones be bygones and say, you know what? We focused in the beginning and we did all the work. We paused, we assessed, we looked at our values and we did all of these works, right? Now it's like everything should just be the same because in the beginning, it's going to be the same. So you're going to forego looking at any progress. And if you don't see the progress, how can you become mentally fortified? Right? Think of confidence. Confidence is in the essence of what mental fortitude is. Confidence doesn't happen all of a sudden. Courage doesn't happen all of a sudden. It happens after the fact. So the more you do something and you're deliberate in doing it, the more you become more confident. For example, speaking. If you were a public speaker and you would go on stage and give keynotes, you in the beginning might be extremely nervous and shy, but at some point it becomes easy, right? It's hard and then it's easy. And now you're like, whoa, like this is an eye-opening experience where you're challenging yourself and you are mentally fortified to do it. You're not afraid, right? Of course, you might get some butterflies here and there, but you are reinforced through the actions that you've done. And that is step 5, where you were looking at what you were doing, but then you gave yourself the action. And I want you to understand how much happened before you even took action. And when you took the action, how it was a micro step. Because even if you have a strong mindset, mental fortitude happens through time. Think of calluses, right? Like on your hands or your knuckles if you're a boxer, or even like kicking things with your shin. It becomes hardened to a degree where you can just hit something and you're like, all right, I don't feel it. Same thing as I said a couple episodes back about playing guitar. You develop those calluses, right? So it just becomes easy. You reinforce yourself through the actions that you do. But in the beginning, it's not that. You're going to get skin breaking. You're going to get this tingling sensation in your fingers, right? From the calluses, and it's going to feel wrong. But then at some point, you're just going to be fortified to handle everything that you were giving yourself. Now, there might be a point where you need to give yourself more, or maybe you give yourself less. So all of that progress that you've done either is going to maintain or it's going to go down. Now, if you give yourself more, it's going to go up. So you have to ask yourself, where are you on that mental fortitude scale? Are you at that tippy top, or are you at the beginning where you know you're going to grow crazy? And if you know you're going to grow crazy, you have to keep on giving yourself all of these levels of actions, from the small, the medium to the large. And the more you do it, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the more resilient you become. The more resilient you become in the essence of everything. Challenges don't seem as bad anymore, and your mindset becomes mentally fortified. So there's a lot to say. Now, 6 and 7 are going to be talking about the idea of what comes after the action, right? We want to look at objectives, and we also want to maintain the energy, right? And then, of course, have boundaries. So we look at the objective and we say, are we heading in the direction, right? Think of a spaceship or a plane, right? A spaceship, I think, is a better analogy. If a spaceship launches into the atmosphere, going into space, at some point, it's going to figure out which planet it wants to go to. It wants to go to the moon. Okay, this is where it's going to be when we reach this location. They don't chase the moon. They shoot for where it's going to be in this time span or whatever it be. So if it's going to take, let's say, 3 months to get to Mars, they're going to say, okay, where will Mars be in 3 months? It's not going to be, okay, Mars is here right now. Let me boost myself to where Mars is right now. They're planning for where it's going to be. So we have to look at the objective. Where do you want to be? And that's where we're aiming. And sometimes that aim is not going to be a straight line. It's going to be as we're going, we see the target and we're homing missiles and boom, we hit it. All right. So we need to know, we need to visualize it. We need to look at the obstacles and we need to make sure that we are going in the direction that's going to, again, pass those obstacles or A or B, destroy them, right? So we anticipate the challenges and we find solutions. Now, we have to have a certain momentum or certain buildup or a certain energy that needs to be present in order for us to do things. Think of motivation in the sense of if you're not motivated, sometimes you have a hard time doing things. Maybe sometimes you say, you know what? I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do this next week. I'm going to do this next year. I'm going to do this when I get some more money. How many conversations have you had with yourself about things along those lines or in that nature? Too many, right? I've had too many. I can't tell you how many times I say, you know what? I'm going to do this tomorrow. And I know me. I say, if I say that, I'm literally digging my own grave because I know I'm going to do it the same day. I go, oh, I can't believe I said that. Now I have to do it today because I know how the mind works. The moment I say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'm just going to put it off for another day or so, it becomes a habit. And I don't have the luxury to wait. I just don't. Of course, I understand that in life, yeah, sure, you can take it slow and you can be methodical about how you make your moves. But the way my brain works is tomorrow is not promised. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be around. I don't know if other people are going to be around. And I think of it in the way of our life is always fleeting. It's always going to be moving to a speed or tune where we might not be in rhythm of. And we have to make a choice. Are we going to catch up to it or is it going to catch up to us? And what happens is it outlaps us and it just makes it so hard to catch. And most people, they can't get a hold of life. So they just accept the circumstances of whatever is given to them. They just become bystanders to the world as it turns, as it spins. We don't necessarily know, hey, why I'm doing this is because I understand that this mindset I'm giving myself or this idea of mental fortitude is going to lead me to better things in the future. Sometimes when it comes to mental fortitude and as we're building it, we don't see the results immediately, but we can see it if we have that mindset of a high performer, a high achiever. Because high achievers and high performers, they have statistic records of, all right, I have seen this work with someone. Why can't it work for me? I've done this before and it worked or it didn't work as well. I know how to make some changes so we can work. So they are methodical about everything and they follow these steps. Now, I want you to understand that mental fortitude is not a talent. It's a discipline that is cultivated and you have to be intentional about it. It's something where it can be lost if you are not truly present in what mental fortitude is. Because if you just are super courageous, right, and you're just like doing all these dangerous things, and all of a sudden you get a little bit older and then your body starts to feel a little bit weaker, and then you try something, maybe you do it with the same mindset as you did initially, but then maybe you fail like crazy and you're like, whoa, I'm so out of shape or I'm so out of whack. And that right there is going to create that roadblock. And also, as you fall from mental fortitude, it becomes more challenging to get back up to it because you know how hard or challenging it was to get a mind that's mentally fortified. To now rebuild it again is a whole new ballpark. Now, there are people like trainers who purposely get fat or they purposely gain a bunch of weight so they can lose it again, so they can keep their mind primed at being mentally fortified. One of the things we don't want in life is to find a nice little spot where we say, okay, cool, let's get some mental fortification. We're here, we're mentally fortified. And then all of a sudden, you just stop growing. You just stop changing, you stop evolving. That right there is going to be like inflation now kicking in. Even though your money's under the mattress, that again, that mental fortitude is right there under the mattress with you and everything is the same, you thought, eventually it's going to start to go downhill because the world is changing. All right. Of course, we can say maybe the world is getting weaker to some degrees, but most of the time it's going to go into a positive change. And the positive change doesn't mean that it's positive for us. It means that it's going to be something that either we have to elevate to and grow to, or we're going to find ourselves behind the eight ball. Think of technology as an example. If we fail to understand technology, number one, I wouldn't know how to do this podcast, or I wouldn't know how to edit, or I wouldn't know how to email people, or I wouldn't know how to do social media. All of these things happen even before like the inception of like the internet, right? Who knew there would be so many podcasts? Who knew there would be so many businesses or coaching businesses? To a degree, we can say that it was a possibility, but we had to, again, be able to see what was logical steps or what was logical procedures to happen in the world. And when you become mentally fortified, it doesn't matter what the world gives you or what throws itself at you or whatever. You're able to say, okay, cool, I'm strong. I'm going to overcome. I'm going to handle this. So we learn from this. Now, as we combine all of these different steps and all of these different awarenesses, we develop a preparation and we develop a practice to continually motivate ourselves to look at mental fortitude as something as gymnastics, where it's like we're getting stronger, we're getting better, we are training so we can make small incremental improvements on our mind. And this can transform the mindset into something amazing. It develops it to be a fortress, a castle, right? Something that is like, whoa, if you have to raid this castle or you have to storm this castle, it's not going to be easy. So in a sense, we fortify those inner walls. And when we do that, we make it resilient from the outside stimuluses of the world and the negativities in our brain's natural tendency to be negative. So there's a lot to be said about mental fortitude, and not everyone's going to be able to master it on day one. Even high achievers, high performers, mental fortitude can be there present right now. But to what degree? To what level? Is it strong? Is it medium strength, or is it weak? In this article, we're talking about TOS 80, mental fortitude, how high performers strengthen their inner walls. This article goes so much more into depth for what a person can be doing or what a person should be looking at. Of course, their circumstances are going to dictate and guide them through many of the processes that they're living. Of course, the pressures of life and looking at values and systems and maintaining the composure of everything that is what life is to you. It can be daunting. And I know transformation can be a more scary and challenging thing. So there's a lot to say. And I want anyone who is a high performer or a high achiever that is, again, doing the things that is really going to like change life. It's going to really make like the world different because of their work. And it might not be about like, hey, I'm helping this company get some gutters. Sure, right? Gutters might not be a big deal to the world, but the act of service, right? The act of you being a high performer, the act of you showing up, the act of you accepting the challenge. My son, he watches the show, and the show is Hot Wheels. And one of the things the kids say is challenge accepted. And it's so funny because in the show, there's always some adversity, very similar to like the hump in the movies, where it's like there's something that happens in the movies where you're like, oh, a pit in your stomach, and they have to overcome it. Rocky, for example, he loses and then he has to win. That mental fortitude coming from that loss to the victory, or from the problem to the solution, mental fortitude is going to lead you there all the time. I want you to check out this article if you are a high performer, if you're someone who is looking to maybe even be a high performer, if you're at the precipice of starting something big in your life, whether it be a company or you have this vision that's going to be big or the next big thing. Learn how to be mentally fortified, because you're going to have so many obstacles, you're going to have so many distractions, and you're going to have maybe even so many naysayers telling you that something is not possible. The only thing that's not possible are the things that you believe. So believe in possibility, believe in change, believe in what you can accomplish, and then begin to change the world. Strengthen your inner walls, and your mental fortitude become the strongest thing the world has ever seen.